afternoon. I'm delighted to be here. I'm honored to be here. Just last year, I was involved in the Columbia County Executive Leadership, so I know a little bit of what you've done today. I went to the culinary class at Grovetown High School last year, and what a treat that was. So I know that you've enjoyed that. And if you had lasagna today, which I understand that you did, that's why I asked if you wanted to stand up. But anyway, I'm pleased to be here. I'm fairly new to Columbia County and Augusta, and really love this area, and I'm very proud of this group and this area for sponsoring these leadership things. I think it's really important. So I wanted to speak with you about several things. A little bit about Augusta Prep, because I would like to have that opportunity to let you know about this independent school option in our region. But I also wanted to speak a little bit about education in general, because that's been my life's work, and I think it's a very important part of what we do as a county, as a state, as a nation to educate our children. And the third thing I'd like to speak a little bit about is just leadership, because that's what you're here for. You're the future leaders of this area, and I feel that we are educating the future leaders of our area, so I have some thoughts about that. First, a little bit about Augusta Prep. Augusta Prep is a 53-year-old school of 560 students in preschool through 12th grade. It's in Martinez, not very far. Took me about 5 minutes to get here. 100% of our students go on to four-year colleges and universities all over the country. And we pride ourselves on the holistic education that we offer to prepare them for that. It puts a premium on academic excellence, but we also are very proud of the other programs that we offer that make up that holistic education. The arts programs, the character education programs, and the athletic programs as well. Our average class size is 13, so the student-teacher ratio is low. It is about 8 to 1, and that translates to small classes so that teachers can spend time not only with helping students after class or inside of class, but also in guiding them afterwards for enrichment if needed. And when you've got a small class size and a fairly small teaching load, that translates also where teachers not only have time to work with students, but they also get to know them very well one-on-one. And that, I believe, is a really important part of what makes for good education, is a relationship and the ability to build that relationship between teachers and their students. 25% of our students are students of color. 24% of our students receive some form of need-based financial aid. 64% of our students are from Columbia County, but they also come from 26 zip codes, so many from South Carolina and Richmond as well, Richmond County as well. Our mission is to know and value each student as an individual in a school that's small enough to do so, and to appreciate and celebrate the diversity that is characteristic of our student body. We are the only non-sectarian independent school in this region, and that speaks to the founding of the school and its appreciation for diversity. We work hard to make an Augusta Prep education accessible financially to all families whose students qualify, but that is a challenge and something that we work on all the time. One of the things that is characteristic of Augusta Prep is that we are one of the only 50 schools in the country that has been recognized as a Malone Scholar School, and that we are the only one in Georgia, and that scholarship program recognized us in 2008 with a $2 million grant for need-based financial aid to gifted students. So that is something that we are very proud of and which sets us apart as well. As I said before, Augusta Prep's independent, it's non-sectarian, it's college preparatory. Those three terms, those three descriptors are key in defining what our mission, how our mission translates in this area. The National Association of Independent Schools, NAIS, defines independent schools as 501c3 nonprofit corporate entities, independent in governance and independent in finance. And what that means is that Independent schools own themselves as opposed to public schools, which are owned by the government, parochial schools, which are owned by the church, and govern themselves, typically with a board of trustees that performs fiduciary responsibilities for the school, and sets policy, but leaves the interpretation of that policy to the head of school and the administrators at the school. So they own themselves and they finance themselves, as opposed to public schools who receive public funding. Largely through charging tuition, but also in fundraising, as we did with the Malone Foundation to secure those grant dollars, and also income from endowment. Independence is a unique characteristic of this segment of the education industry, and I think what that does is that it offers schools like Augusta Prep and EDS four freedoms that contribute to their success. First of all, the freedom to define their own unique mission, the freedom to admit and keep only those students who are well matched to that mission, the freedom to define the qualifications for their high-quality teachers, and the freedom to determine on their own what to teach and how to assess student achievement and progress. So that's independence. As a non-sectarian school, we're not influenced by a particular set of religious beliefs or have any religious affiliation. We provide an important option to families in this area that is so diverse religiously and in other ways. And finally, as a college preparatory school, our ultimate goal is for our graduates to meet success in college and beyond. To that end, we offer a rigorous curriculum and a wonderful palette of studio and performing arts, competitive athletics, and a range of clubs, community service activities, and leadership opportunities, which ultimately is available to all of our students. One of the nice things about a small school, and Augusta Prep is a relatively small school as compared to the public offerings, is that at our school, students might have the chance to lead a club, to star in a performing arts theater performance, or be an athlete, or they might be able to do all three. And in larger schools, that's not always the possibility. So as our students are involved in so many things, that we feel develops their confidence and their competence and their compassion. Augusta Prep builds character as part of its mission. That beginning in the lower school, students have character development classes where we actually spend time talking about that. In middle school, the students live by an honor code, and in the upper school, they also live by an honor code, as well as are involved in an honor education council. So if you are a student at Augusta Prep, you ascribe to this honor code. As a member of the student body at APDS, I will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate such behavior in my fellow students. At all times, I will conduct myself honorably and with courtesy and respect toward others. And that is a very important code that guides the development of our students. Augusta Prep is the home of the Cavaliers, and we have great prep pride. Our students love to come to school. Our parents are very engaged and involved in our school, and dedicated to providing the very best education for their children. We know that the sacrifices that they make to invest in their children's tuition, in their children's education through the tuition that they offer is something that is a sacrifice, and we do our best to honor that sacrifice. One of the mottos of the school is that we teach our students how to think, not what to think. And the what's and how's of what we do, I've just described. The why is that we want the best education for our children, so they experience the love of learning, so that they are open-minded and compassionate and strive to make the world a better place. As the leader of Augusta Prep, I'm responsible for providing the vision for the school and ensuring that it continues to fulfill and live its mission with all of its students. But ultimately, as all educators in this world, we have the responsibility of making sure that our students make the world a better place, that they care about the world in which they live. The world is, a rapidly changing place, and education, as a result, is also changing. One of the things that all independent schools and all public schools constantly grapple with is how do we provide the education for our students that will assure that they have got the skills to survive in the workplace and after college. As many of you know, much of education in the world continues in much the same way as it has for many decades in the United States and across the world. And one of the challenges of all educators in independent and public schools and across our nation is how do we develop skills for a workplace and for a world that we don't know how to predict. The only thing that we know is that the world is going to be a different place for our children when they graduate from college or from high school than it was for us when we graduated. And as a result, 21st century skills, if you want to call them that, are the skills to make a difference in a world that you can't predict, are the skills that we try to develop. And those skills come come to fruition in many ways, whether you are teaching through your regular classroom experiences, problem solving, or collaborative work, or working as a team, or creativity, or cross-cultural understanding. All of those are the types of skills that if the children graduate with them from high school and then go on to college, they may well be able to tackle whatever the educational or the workplace environment that they enter. One of the things that we are trying to do to address those challenges is to open up our campus to offering summer programs and evening programs to our community, to bring some of the community onto our campus to provide access and some expertise and some programming that we have. But at the same time, we are also taking our students out into the region, whether it's through senior projects or shadowing or internships in local areas, or whether it is doing community service that is helping out a local community, whatever experiences we can offer them where they are actually translating what they've learned in the classroom to a real world experience, we think is doing them a great service. And as I said, I would like to say just a little bit about leadership and about a couple of characters of leadership, good, strong characters of leadership that I believe are, and that's my phone making all those noises because I heard and I thought, I recognize those noises. I apologize. So just ignore them. One of them is saying, okay, if you are not at the Columbia County Board of Education, you're late. I'd like to quote two people, one of them, William Dereskowitz, who made a lecture to the plebe class of the U.S. Military Academy several years ago, entitled Solitude and Leadership. His premise, leaders need to be able to think independently, creatively, flexibly. To do that, they need to be able to communicate, to focus, to find the strength and wisdom to face challenges, to confront problems. They need to know who they are and what they believed. He closed his lecture by saying, and I quote, "How can you know that unless you've taken counsel with yourself in solitude?" I started by saying that solitude and leadership would seem to be contradictory things, but it seems to me that solitude is the very essence of leadership. The position of the leaders is ultimately an intensely solitary, even intensely lonely one. However many people you may consult, you are the one who has to make the final decision, the hard decision. And at each moment, all you really have is yourself, end quote. Find time for solitude, to process the demands of each day, day after day after day, and still keep yourself above that fray with your eyes clear and focused on your vision for your institution or for your business or for your association, that is a challenge, and that does require some solitude. And then another quote from the book, The Focus of Leadership, Choosing Service Over Self-Interest by Michael McKinney. True leadership is and always has been a selfless action. It involves taking yourself out of the picture and considering the needs of others. It is a way of thinking that takes other people into account even when your own needs are pressing. It asks what is right or best in the wider interest. A leader is someone who will complete the job they were asked to do without regard for themselves. Leaders who will lead and not merely register the will of other people. He uses the term custodian, a keeper, a guardian, or a caretaker who holds something in trust on behalf of others, a servant leader. So in closing, I wish you all to consider, as you go through this leadership program, the importance of solitude and service as you develop in your leadership. Thank you.
Well, I never really actually heard you speak publicly. We've met in meetings and stuff before. Okay, I'm going to change it up a little bit. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, stand up and clap 6 times, please. Stand up and clap 6 times. Oh, thank you. I can now tell my mother on her 90th birthday I got a standing ovation. Thank you very much. Let's see, all right, how do I open this puppy? Is that it? It is. And let's find Lead Coco. That's you guys. And slideshow, play from beginning. Boom! Can you guys see that? Okay, yep. Awesome. I'm gonna totally change it up. First of all, it is an honor to be here. It's a leadership. It's a great leadership program. I've seen your bios and who you are. This is an impressive group. But more importantly, I've seen your agenda for the day. So I know the chances of me saying anything that you hear or remember is pretty slim. So I'm going to come at it from a slightly different angle and see if I can shake the box just a little bit and maybe get your attention. So rather than do a commercial about Episcopal Day School, this slide notwithstanding, I'm going to come at it a little bit different. Well, I might do a tiny little commercial at the end. But what I really want to do, I have a goal today, and my goal is to convince you that while we're in here in this nice education fortress, and it is a bit of a highly secure building, I've noticed, when we're in here, that out there is a revolution going on in education, specifically in higher education. So my goal is to convince you of that. Let's remember that at the end, or maybe even write it down, okay? So I don't know if it's possible or not. But I'm here to tell you that I believe that there is currently underway a revolution in higher education that is so disruptive that when this year's kindergartners graduate from high school, 12 and a half years, there will be no such thing as a 4-year college or even a 4-year degree. Now, have you all heard that already today?
No. Not today. Not
today. You've heard it before, though. Okay, so you've had a whole day devoted to education and workforce readiness, and no one but me has pulled the curtain back and told you it's changing so radically out there that the whole system is going to be turned upside down. I might be wrong, but I've got about 10 minutes. I got about 10 minutes to convince you that's the case, okay? So here's the deal. Actually, 71 million Google hits agree with me that there's a revolution in higher education, correct? And it turns out it's Harvard and MIT's responsibility. It's their fault, so we can blame them. And if you don't believe me or them, perhaps Thomas Friedman, the columnist, will convince you. He says revolution hits universities, okay? So here's the deal. Here's what the revolution is. I think there are powerful forces out there right now conspiring to kill the 1,000-year-old model that we call the university or the academy. Think about it. It was built on this model, right? Here it is. Here's the business model. Creating and offering limited, controlled access to high-quality teachers, whether that was monks or experts or practitioners, great teachers, limited controlled access to great teachers. Second, limited and controlled access to world-class resources, libraries, computers. And third, limited and controlled access to a high-quality peer group, right? You went to Harvard to go get in front of Harvard's teachers, Harvard's resources, and to go to school with other Harvard students. The problem is, or the reality is, that that model is completely outdated today. Okay? So here are the forces that are gathering, I think, to undermine that. First, disruptive, accessible, and scalable new technologies. Does everyone in this room know what a MOOC is? No? Okay. Massive open online courses.
Oh, yes.
These courses, online education, massive and open, coming out of all of the two of the top three online course MOOC offering companies are funded by private schools. Two of the top three are nonprofits funded by places like Stanford, Harvard, MIT. This is a real deal and not a fad going away. That's just one example of these scalable new technologies. Force number two, the radical new financial models to address the affordability problem we all read about every week and the massive and growing student debt crisis, okay? So that's force number two. Force number three are breakthroughs in assessment, in our ability to actually do good assessment. What does somebody really know? What are they able to do, both in cognitive and in non-cognitive skill sets? But maybe a little bit more about that later. Any of you in civic groups, I can come talk to your civic group on any one of these and do a 20-minute just on the bullet point. And finally, there are democratic and free market forces at play here. Sally Blunt, who's the Dean of Kellogg's Graduate School of Management, calls MOOCs the most, get it right, one of the greatest equalizers of opportunity since the printing press. Okay? So there's a powerful force happening there. Now, we don't have time in the next 7 minutes to unpack all of this, right? But if you want me to unpack any more of this for you, I'd be happy to come back. But let me just give you some examples to make the case that this is actually happening out here, okay? First of all, Georgia Tech. Some of you may have heard. Last May, Georgia Tech announced a new program. Here's what they've done. They have an on-campus program right now, a master's program in computer engineering that has a capacity of 300 students. They charge their tuition, which out of state is somewhere around $45,000. Last May, they announced they're taking that program entirely online. Now, listen to these numbers. They tell you not to throw data at people, but you guys are going to like these numbers. Capacity for the new program, 10,000 students. They're going to add fewer than 8 instructors, and they're going to charge, wait for it, $6,600 tuition.
For the whole thing?
A year. I think that's annual tuition.
How much did you say?
Versus
6,600 versus 45,000 out of state. Okay, so he's doing some math over there. I conservatively estimate a few expenses, netting somewhere around $50 million of revenue just for that one program. Okay? Now, that's revolutionary. Guess what they're going to do with that $50 million of extra revenue? Buy a football team? Guess what they're going to do after they buy a football team? The back row's listening. Guess what they're going to do with the revenues after they buy a football team? They're giving it back to, they're sharing it with the professors who are teaching in that program, who are taking on the 10,000 student caseload. Now that's revolutionary, okay? How about that? Okay. Now here's a new one. So here's another. Did you hear about Sewanee 3 years ago? Cutting tuition 10% across the board. The next year, they lock in, they establish a policy, freshman tuition will be locked in for 4 years. So every year, whatever your tuition is when you enroll, that's your frozen tuition for 4 years. Now that's revolutionary. Until Converse College does this, announced last month. 43% cut in their tuition across the board. Now that's revolutionary. But that's not all. Okay, so it's not just these models. These are just some examples to get your attention and get you thinking that things really are changing in big ways, not just small incremental ways. That's not an incremental change. I want you to think about, Becky was talking about how the world is changing and how fast. That she and I today are preparing vast numbers of students, more than any other time in history, for jobs that don't yet exist. That's our charge. And it's predicted that middle schoolers today will change careers, not jobs, change careers an average of 4 to 7 times in their lifetime.
Really?
Right on. So, what will they need to navigate that world? What knowledge? What skill sets? What attributes? That's what you guys have been sort of talking at and nibbling around the edges at today. But I want to get at what I think is the very heart of this conversation, okay? So, reading, writing, arithmetic clearly will not be sufficient, especially if the focus in those areas is minimum literacy skills. Now, those are important, but they're not sufficient to be a victor in this revolution, okay? So students today, unlike us, won't be able to ride the current. I mean, let's face it. You got into a decent school and you rode the current through and you had to maybe pick a college and pick a major. It's not going to be that simple anymore. There's a whole set of skills and attributes that will be critical to success in this environment. And there will be winners and losers. Well, in fact, as in a revolution, there will be casualties, and there will be survivors, and there will be victors. Okay? And so the piece I want to talk about mostly today is about what it's going to take to be a victor, to be a winner in this revolution. I personally think the difference in there is going to be what for lack of a better term, is what I call non-cognitive skills. Skills like this. These don't line up with academic departments. Who majored in one of these? Right? So I think these will determine the difference more than SAT scores, more than your calculus grade, and more even than IQ. I'm absolutely convinced of this. So here, let's see. What are we talking about? What are non-cognitive skills? Well, that's pretty tricky, actually. We call them 21st century skills. We know that they are the skills that are critical to life and success. You guys have fumbled around with trying to talk about them today, I know. We know that our traditional grades and tests don't address them or evaluate them. So some people have written about it. There are a lot of books about this. I can give you a reading list. There are people who generate lists. Tony Wagner has this 7 survival skills for the 21st century. This, it's careers, college, and citizenship in the 21st century. This is what you spent your day on. You should be looking at this list. It's interesting. Notice here, these two don't line up with subject areas, with departments in schools, with majors or degrees. Notice also that he sort of cheats. Do you see 7 skills up there? It looks like about 14 or 15. That's okay. That's how you sell books, right? There's another one. The National Association of Independent Schools, Becky referenced. They have a list of the essential capacities for the 21st century. Not preferred, not optional, not good, not recommended, essential. I happen to agree. And rest assured, this is not a trend or a fad. There's plenty of research to support the importance of these non-cognitive skills. Non-cognitive skills correlate positively with high academic performance. It's not either or. They promote, the development of these skills promotes high academic performance. It's been demonstrated in NAEP, PISA, GPA. In another study, conscientiousness, okay, the attribute of conscientiousness was studied, as were teacher ratings of students in these non-cognitive domains. Both of those correlate to GPA as well or better than the SSAT. Okay, that may not be surprising to you all, but how about this? There's a better negative correlation with those skills and behaviors we don't want to see. Things like class absences, discipline problems, and infirmary visits are clearly better correlated or mitigated better by the development of non-cognitive skills than better performance in school. Does that make sense? No, enough data. And these aren't born-in skills. These can be developed. They can be developed, they can be taught, they can be trained. Interventions can work. And as a result, we can change the life trajectory of a person by addressing these skills. It's clear that teaching these skills doesn't take away from academic progress or core outcomes. In fact, it enhances them. These are at the center of what schools are trying to do. We've lost sight of them and quit allocating time for them and quit allocating money for them and quit developing programs for them, but they're central and essential. You know it. Examine your own life. Examine what success in your business is. These skills and qualities also correlate very highly to important